The purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. It is no substitute for professional care by your doctor or your qualified healthcare professional. Never disregard or delay professional medical advice because of something you've heard on this podcast or in any linked material. Guests who speak on this podcast express their own opinions, experience, and conclusions. Dr. Shirley neither endorses nor opposes any particular opinion discussed on this podcast. The views expressed on this podcast have no relation to those of any academic, hospital, practice, institution, or other entity with which Dr. Shirley may be affiliated.
Welcome to Forever Fab, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty. This podcast is curated by Dr. Shirley Madhere, MD, as the definitive source of holistic wellness through beauty.
This week's episode is dedicated to financial freedom. And the topic of this episode is Rebel with a Cause, Financial Equity, Parity, and Power for All. Welcome to my interview with Brooke Harley. Brooke Harley is the CEO and founder of Class Rebel. Class Rebel is a modern education company that believes that education is a form of peaceful protest against class inequality. Modern skill sets should be available and affordable to all. Quote, end quote. The company believes in longevity of learning, lifelong learning, and development as a means to happiness, keeping pace with change, experiencing education live in real time, in real life, accessibility of skill sets, and learning from being street smart. In her early career trajectory, Brooke worked as the head of business development for Lululemon Athletica's international operations. Prior to Lululemon, she was an M&A attorney. Mergers and acquisitions. She then transitioned to raising capital as a venture capitalist. Whoop, whoop. Brooke founded Campfire Capital in 2014. She raised $32 million, I said million US dollars from 50 consumer industry founders, CEOs, and executives, and has evaluated hundreds of early stage consumer businesses in the consumer space. When distributing funds, Brooke noticed the disparity between entrepreneurs from elite colleges and universities and everybody else. To help close the gap, she created two courses, Fundraising 101 and Angels 101. Investing and fundraising, like many high-powered and lucrative fields, is male-dominated space. Brooke challenges the status quo by educating more female entrepreneurs in the venture capital and angel investing arenas. She joins me today via StreamYard to discuss coin, social currency, and taking financial matters into your own hands. Welcome, Brooke. Congratulations on all of your success. And thank you for becoming a beautiful member of the Forever Fab community. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Shirley. And it's such a pleasure to talk about these subjects. I feel so strongly, and not everyone always wants to talk about them, but I am always ready to talk about them. So thank you very much for having me.
Well, I am ready to chit-chat away, so let's get into the first question. Tell me about your childhood experiences with money and the events or thought processes that led you to study finance or enter the financial sector.
That's a great question that no one's ever asked me before.
Yes!
Really, yeah. The truth is, bless my parents, they had us working when we were like 9 years old, earning money, like carrying flyers around that were like heavier than me. And that, I'm from the North, I'm from Canada, and we're talking, very cold weather in the dark. And so it inspired a work ethic in me.
Yeah.
And I eventually became a lawyer, and that was a lot of training, but it was there in my law practice, my corporate law practice, that I really saw some things, right? That, professionals were like us, were really working by the hour, where you had business people, bankers that were being compensated differently. And I just thought, and you see the depression levels in law and things like that. And I just thought there's a better way to do this. And it just got me interested in the discrepancies and how people were being compensated. And one of my first things I did as a lawyer, you guys, was I drafted a stock option plan, which at the time seemed boring. And it was this really mean partner. And I remember him swearing at me and I got something wrong and I was like sweating through my suit. But 20 years, 10, 15, 20 years later, I look back at understanding stock option plans as the thing that changed my life, because I eventually left law. I went into the MBA, and one of the things that changed my life was a 30-minute negotiation with the chief financial officer, Lululemon, on my way into that company. And because I drafted stock option plans for a living, I knew the impact of them. And so it's all I focused on in the negotiation. And it truly was life-changing within 3 years. I came in during the recession, the stock was at the bottom. And within 3 years, it had increased 800%. And so that changed things. It was a windfall that changed everything. And it led me to start investing. And I was, up in Canada, not a lot of people are into venture. I was figuring it out for myself. And then raised a fund, and then you just see like the class divide that goes on when you're dealing with large sums of money, and who gets trusted to risk capital and who doesn't, right? And who's actually investing their capital and who isn't. And it just led me to really see a lot of things that I think education doesn't always change the bias, but it can certainly help chip away at what's happening if we imbue people with some confidence about how this actually works. So that's the journey to today.
That sounds pretty amazing. I have to tell you, I'm glad you took, the risks, because when I was first starting my practice, of course, I needed money. I mean, starting a plastic surgery practice requires some serious capital initially. And my parents didn't have it. I didn't have it. So I went to banks, and the series of rejections that I received, despite how polished I was and educated, they didn't care. I got not 1 cent.
No, because you're female and a person of color. Do you know what I mean? Like, if we can just speak in real ways, like you don't meet the profile of who capital gets risked on. Neither do I. I mean, we took to raise the fund. I had a female partner, and it took us 100 yeses, 900 nos. Like, that's how many times and my thing with, raising money for your startups, on that aspect of it, Shirley, I just think, what's the answer, right? Part of it, because such little venture capital goes to women.
Yes.
What's the answer, right? There's a huge bias that's cemented in there. But I think the answer is, if we can educate ourselves on how to speak an investor's language, and we just refuse to give up, that is how we get chances, right? To build companies that matter. It is a straight matter of persistence, I think. And education helps. It's a great piece to give you the confidence, but it's going to be more than that changes the dynamics of raising money for your startup. And I think on the angel investing side too, it's a barrier to overcome, risking money and getting comfortable with risk like that.
Yeah. Now, you just answered my second question, which is, stock option plans, negotiations, equity versus cash, windfalls, investing, angels, venture. It's a whole new language in this so-called money game. And my second question to you was going to be, is it something that can be learned? And you answered it by saying, yes, that education is part of it, to lead you to gain the confidence to be able to speak that language, because it is a different language. It probably means, some of those terms probably mean things that we already inherently understand, or they make sense, but because they're different names, or they're called different things, or there's a different language, it becomes a different game, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's just a paradigm to learn, right? This can all be taught, and I'm glad you are bringing up, forms of equity as compensation, because the latest conversation we're having inside Class Rebel is teaching stock option plans from the perspective of an employee, consultant for equity. We want to look at RSUs, stock option plans, employee share purchase plans. Why this matters, because I don't know if you caught the Wall Street Journal article, and it said Black and Latino workers are the lowest to get. They're the lowest to get, options. And again, that's a conversation you have on your way in, right? So if you don't have the language, and by the way, I can tell you, at the headquarters of Lululemon when I was there, we had 1,000 people at that time, and I can genuinely count about 5 people who understood the mechanics of stock options.
Wow.
And and most people just didn't understand. And that would have been the head of accounting, the CFO, the CEO, me, and maybe somebody else.
Yeah.
But most people inside I knew didn't negotiate anything on the way in, and then didn't know how to exercise. And it's, I reflect back on that, Shirley, of that 30-minute negotiation. And that was the piece that changed my life. And this is what I say when I open my angel investing class, welcome. The job market is one market to make money, but so is the public equities market. So is the private investing market. So is cryptocurrency. So is art, right? There's a whole, so is real estate, which is a great asset class. The job market, in my view, is one market to make money. It's just one, and it has the most bias, right? If we make good decisions on real estate, you and I, Shirley, if we make good decisions on real estate, are we paying no, of course not. The market pays you for your correct decision, right? It pays you 100% out. Whereas I find the job market full of bias. You're getting paid less, you don't get promoted as much. Whereas the market, these real estate markets, currency markets, whatever it is, public equities, private, if you get it right, they just simply don't care if you have the judgment, the experience to make that decision. How old you are? You too old? You too young? We don't like your gender. It doesn't matter. And that's why I love the market so much versus a job market, is because it's just more of a meritocracy, in my view.
Yeah, I have so much to learn from you. I'm really excited. Now, getting back to the story that you told about 1,000 people who were there at Lululemon Athletica, but only about 5 or so knew what the stock option plans were. Why I feel that the whole topic of money and investing, or just money in general, is a really heavy and loaded topic for women. Do you agree? And if so, why?
That's such an interesting question. I'd love to dig into that, because if it is, I never got the memo. I don't know why that's true. I've never felt like that applies to me. And I've turned off a lot of people along the way by talking about it so openly. I don't know why. Why do you think it's so loaded? I mean, I genuinely did not get the memo. I think it's a really important thing, because to me, it's important, not because I want to go buy that, Celine handbag, or I want to buy that brand new, Range Rover. It's because of the freedom that it's provided, right? And how you use that freedom is wonderful, right? Do you want to create a company that matters, right? I think Class Rebel and what we're doing for education in this 100-year life matters. And I get to spend my time doing things that I think matter, rather than being a slave to a job. It's the biggest freedom I've been trying to earn, for I've had that freedom for close to a decade now. Do you want to spend more time with your kids? Do you want to spend more time with your aging parents, right? Or do you want to spend more time being creative because that's what de-stresses you? To me, money is, it buys a freedom, to live a more healthy, balanced life.
I agree with you 100%. And I also don't know the answer to that question. And perhaps, moment of vulnerability here, maybe in that question for you, there was a little bit of my projecting, because I know culturally for me, money, banking, finance, that was not something that, girls were taught. So I wasn't taught that. And ironically, my father's in, the banking and, economic industry, but I wasn't taught that. And I also think that there is education that is involved. I veered more towards, life sciences and biology and languages, and, in pre-med thinking, yes, I'm going to help others and be really passionate about what I do. And hopefully, I'll be able to pay some of my bills. But so that may be part of the answer to that question. But getting back to education about that, maybe educational cultural bias, do you think the education system, at least in the United States, fails most students because there is no focus or emphasis on the financial foundations for economic wellness? I know I didn't get it in school.
Well, here's what I think about education generally. And all of my education is from Canada, where I'm from. So I've only been living, in New York since 2019.
Welcome.
So thank you. I'm thrilled to be there. So my perspective is from, a different wealthy country with great access to education that doesn't put you in debt for your whole life.
Yeah.
Here's one thing I do think, though, about institutions everywhere in the way that universities are set up. Number one, they are set up to serve a life construct that doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work in a 100-year life, right? In this 100-year life, think how absurd this is. We end our formal learning at 21 years old. And then from 21 to 100, what are we doing for 80 years? Are we doing podcasts and Netflix now? Like, is that how we learn? Like, all by ourselves, piecing it together? I think that cultural construct of you stop learning at 21 has got to be done with. It doesn't make sense in this period of our, like, with living to 100 years old. So that doesn't work anymore.
Agreed.
I also think that universities and colleges, the way they are structured, they are simply not set up to remain modern and current. So what I know about working with them so far, because we've had some of them, kind of check us out. But imagine this: to accredit a course in a university or college setting, it takes 2 to 3 years. And so how absurd would it be to build a course on something as fast moving as a cryptocurrency and blockchain subject matter and have that sit and wait to be accredited for 3 years? That doesn't move fast enough.
Right.
I don't think they update their courses very often. They're not building into what's relevant fast enough because of maybe budget constraints. I'm not sure, but I don't trust that universities are really teaching the cutting edge. And in any event, what we're doing with Class Rebel is we're not looking to compete with college anyway. College is for those that go up to 21. We're saying there's nothing really awesome and cool and new for 21 to 100. Like, if you look at the continuing education companies that are the most like crusty, sort of stigmatized, like no one would want to be like, no one would post that on their Instagram, right? They post about us. So I just don't think universities and colleges are incented to stay modern and up to date on skills. And even if they are, 21, ending your education at 21 makes no damn sense anymore. Not in a 100-year life. It's an absurd concept that we will eventually look back on and be like, what were we thinking?
Right. And not only that, yes, continue.
I was just going to say, it might have made sense in that kind of life construct where we used to die in between 50 and 65. But this, it was a 3-part life. You're a child, and then you're growing up, and then you have responsibility, and you're raising the next generation, then you high five and call it a life at like between 50 and 65. That's where this comes from. But in this 100-year life, it's just an absurd concept that you would stop formally learning at 21 and then for 80 years just sort of figuring it out. But I also think that's in place because of the price of college education. First of all, in the US, you only have 30% of people with college degrees. That's it. A huge part of that is price, right? Yeah. People can't afford to be in debt their whole lives, and they can't afford the sticker price. You look at other wealthy countries like Canada, it's nearly double. Nearly 60% have a college degree, but college is heavily subsidized by the government. So it's a different policy, right?
Right.
So I think that they're charging an absurd amount. And I'm not the only person who thinks this. Scott Galloway in New York, NYU prof, is on about it as well. So it's an absurd price. It's only for a certain period in your life, and then you spend the rest of your life paying it off. So if Class Rebel doesn't make education accessible and affordable to everybody, then we really are in the dark for 80 years in this fast-moving, technology-driven life. And I think if we don't build what we're building from an education standpoint, modern skill sets, affordable to all, available to all, somebody else will do this because it's such an obvious opportunity, I think.
Yeah, I do think it's a fantastic opportunity that you're creating, and it is so necessary. Imagine all the years of schooling that it took for me to do what I do. My debt is insane. My debt is absolutely insane. And I feel that I'm just caught up in this vortex of, working hard and trying to work and trying to pay my bills. Oh, but wait, there's this, the $3,000 plus $4,000 bill that I have to pay every month for the next at least 25 years of my life. Oh my God.
Right. So how are you ever, if that's the price of education and, you want to take ongoing courses and they're all thousands of dollars, there's no way you're going to do it because you've got You've got the college debt. You maybe have a mortgage on your home, right? You have kids. I'm maybe not talking about you specifically, but like people's lives, right?
Yes.
They don't have the money to keep investing in their education if it's going to be delivered at those prices. So how we view it is, why, if Netflix can do what it did for documentaries and movies, that, it's in your house at $13.99. To us, Netflix transcends class in that whether you're affluent or non-affluent, you could have it in your home. You can take advantage of documentaries and the entertainment and all that. If you can do that for, multi-million production budget movies, why can't you do that for modern skill sets? Of course you can. Of course you can. So I think we should do it. And that's what the team and I are working on.
Well, you are doing it. And thank you, because I'm going to become one of your students.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Come to class.
I will come to class. I do. I actually come to class very well. I've been doing it for many years. I know how to do that.
Yeah.
Now, is there a specific path to becoming an angel investor or a venture capitalist? Or let's say, for example, someone is lucky enough to inherit millions of dollars. Is it just something as simple as saying, I've been lucky enough to have this money. I want to, pay it forward and give it to other people who do good work. I'm just going to write big checks. I'm now an angel investor or venture capitalist. Is that how it works? How does that process work? How does one become and amass in order to give away?
So the interesting thing about where angel investing is right now is the securities laws are changing. For 35 years in the US, and Canada followed suit. The rules were, unless you're an accredited investor, Shirley, then you don't even get to invest in private companies because it's too risky for you, right?
Oh, wow.
So unless the U.S. regulators and many other Western countries around the world have the similar rule, they say, Shirley, unless you're making $200,000 a year, or if you're not, you and your spouse are making $300,000 a year. Or if you guys don't make that, but you have $1 million in financial assets outside of your home, right? Like, only then, right, can you invest in these really risky companies. So that this is the rich getting richer, and they have for a long time. The rules have been changing because clearly, it should have expanded a long time ago into not just a wealth test, but alternatively an education test, right? Do you understand the risks? Do you understand how these investments work? And sure enough, in August 2020, the US rules changed. And now if you don't meet the wealth test, you can meet an education test, right? And have access to all of these. So it's a huge move forward by the US regulators. And I do believe you're going to see other countries around the world follow it, because you need more people. You need to give more, to be more democratic. You need to be giving more people access to these really, high growth, risky, but potentially high growth investments, and not just sort of shelter them off for the rich. So part of it is, there's meeting the accredited investor rules through an education test, or now there's also new rules around crowdfunding, which equity crowdfunding platforms like Republic and Seed Invest, which came in 2016, I think are the absolute future, because they're transparent. The whole internet can see them. The usual path to raising money is knocking on the kind of old boys club doors and doing your pitch. But you gotta have a warm intro. So you have to know certain people.
Yes.
Now angels can go look at these great platforms, Seed Invest, Republic. One of the first people in my class in 2018, she was able to invest a $5,000 check, right? Not huge. $5,000 check in a vegan plant-based, food company called The Very Good Butcher. And 3 years later, it was worth $400,000.
Wow.
That's an 80x return, right? And so she did that with just 5,000. So not only are the rules changing to open up and new platforms are up, and the rules are loosening up to let really anybody be involved. Concurrent with that, you don't need hundreds of thousands or you don't even need tens of thousands to do this. Maybe, I'm hearing as low as 2,500 now.
Wow.
You can go even lower. So the world of angel investing is democratizing right now. And that's the fair and right thing to do. And I've felt that for a long time. So you're seeing it. And concurrently with that, people are getting more interested in it because angel investing and startup investing is really starting to hit the mainstream. But so is public equities investing. Like you saw the whole GameStop thing come up, and that's
Yes.
a whole new world. So for the first time, I feel like investing has its own cool to it.
Yeah.
And people are hungry to learn. So it's a good time for us to be teaching this.
So let's continue along this sort of theme of access, right? I mean, because when you were distributing funds initially, when as a VC, you did see disparities, right? You saw disparities among, between elite colleges and universities and those who didn't have that education.
No question. And it's not just anecdotal. PitchBook puts this data out. Like no one's imagining it. The money goes to Harvard, Wharton, and Stanford.
Right. I'm sure there are inequities, racial disparities, gender disparities, and maybe even other biases that come into play. So speaking to the mission of Class Rebel, you are looking to, at least one at a time, if you can't altogether, dismantle some of these inequities and disparities in access. Tell me specifically how Class Rebel works. I mean, is the education provided on a platform that's primarily financial in nature? Are there other sort of beginner 101 courses like what is money? What can you use it for? Or is it purely about investing?
We're actually, Class Rebel started with fundraising 101 and Angels 101 because that's what I'm qualified to teach. And it really started off as a community service, like just something positive that people could take advantage of at a reasonable price, which led to a much bigger education idea. And so our team is just putting our materials now. We're going to market. I actually already was given a term sheet on this company. I turned it down and built a team, came back. We're going to raise. But the idea really is different streams, right? So we're starting with two streams called side hustle and wealth, right? Because we know in this 100-year life, it's too vulnerable to rely on your employer for your financial livelihood for your whole life. So this is part of the reason why we think, starting your side gig and investing is becoming so popular is partly because we cannot be relying on employers to get us where we want to go, not in this 100-year life. So we're starting with courses in there. And so under Side Hustle, we have Fundraising 101, raising money for a startup. We have Building Your Million Person Movement with Jody Manel, who built Live Kindly, 39 million in organic reach a month.
Wow.
Right. Teaching how to people, how you can get that reach for the following and the movement you're building. We're going to, under Side Hustle, go into crowdfunding, Kickstarter, right? How are these companies like Vessi getting millions and millions, every time they launch a campaign? And how to do $1 million podcast, million person podcast, right? We've got an instructor lined up. She makes $1 million on the classes that she launched, right? We think classes are the new podcasts. And then on the investing side, we'll do, angel investing, we'll do value investing, we will do real estate investing, and so on. And then we'll eventually go into health and relationships and other categories. The instructors are street fighters. The only people teaching are people that have done it. This education is not from the halls of academia. It's from the streets, right? If you've raised money, it's because you took 900 punches to the face and you only got 100 yeses, 900 no's. Like the only people we have teaching are the people that are in it right now. And what they know and what they did is not from the halls of academia. And usually these people succeeded against the odds.
Yeah.
We think that kind of education is really valuable and we don't see anybody owning it. So that's where we're going.
That sounds really exciting. I'm excited. I was just like, I'm going to take that course and that one too, and that one too.
Right. And it's $99, right? Yeah. For 8-hour live, you meet other people in the class as well. And we attract really sharp folks. I mean, and there's a lot of diversity in who we attract, and we attract people from all over the world. We've had South Africa, we've had Israel, we've had everyone in the classes. So I think it's a fascinating thing, and it's live rather than, I think education, listening to a video by yourself is so boring. Of course, we're recording. People need the flexibility.
Yes.
But I think coming live is really exciting because the classes are structured, but not scripted.
Yes.
So it's a bit unpredictable how the conversation goes in class, and we pull out all the experience that's in the room, right? We know that if I teach an angels class, I know there's going to be people in the class that have already angel invested, and we can pull out that experience and we can make it part of the course. So I just think this is something we need in our lives, to be honest, to live a good, healthy life that feels full, if we're really doing this till we're 100,
Yeah. And not only that, I think, the words fulfilling, purposeful, and free come to mind. So this is a movement, Brooke, and I'm so happy that you're leading it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We're excited.
I'm excited for you. Now, some people would say it's good to know a doctor or to have a doctor in the family. Now, from your perspective, what would you say the business relationships or the business professionals, what kind of relationships should you have with them that are essential for a healthy financial life? Like, if it's good to know a doctor, is it good to know, an attorney, a business or a contract lawyer?
Absolutely. I think if you're starting to move into the stage of angel investing, you typically do have, someone you've identified to help you review those investment contracts, right? In angel investing, there's convertible notes, safes, and what's called the priced round. Those are all legal documents. I think if you're starting to risk thousands of dollars, in the class, I do, share, I think you should be finding someone to help you review that. I mean, I'm trained as a lawyer. I won't even look at my own documents with my own. I always have a backup looking at it. And so I do think, these are driven by legal contracts. So definitely you want a lawyer in your life for sure. And that's just part of, going to that next level, is like you have legal counsel in your life.
Yeah. So now let's say you have exactly $100, right? And let's say this is somehow guaranteed by the government. You are going to get a minimum of $100 per month. Let's say you're going to get a minimum of $500 per month. You want to take 100 of those dollars and start investing in yourself and your financial wellness, other than Class Rebel, and making that $99 investment in Class Rebel. What else would you say, sort of step by step, a person should be thinking about if they're pretty much starting from nothing? They're like, okay, how do I do this? How do I begin so that 10 years from now, I am starting to feel this financial freedom?
It's interesting. We were discussing this recently as part of the course we're going to build. I'm not a financial advisor. I can just tell you where I went with it. And my sense is you might feel the same way. My sense was to pay down debt first, pay down my college debt, and then move on to paying down as much of my mortgage as I could.
Yeah.
And then once I felt that was like those sort of amounts were really under control and serviceable. And by serviceable, I mean easily paid with what I was making each month.
Yes.
Only at that point was I starting to invest in assets, and I went less risky first. So I just can't say enough about real estate. Actually, like I do think if you can get a hold of it, it's a great asset to have. But I did start with paying down my debt first.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and I think maybe not everyone does, right? They could be like, well, borrow more, and if you make the right investments, and you can pay it off. But I think it's so risky. You never quite know what's going to work, and so getting debt under control, I think, is one of the first things to do.
Yeah.
And living, I mean, everyone says it, but like living below your means, I do find we are really hit with the consumer culture, and you need the latest clothing, and you need I think that you have to develop a resistance to stuff, because stuff owns you in the end. You don't own stuff. It owns you, I think. And so it's sort of the basics, I know, but I would do all that stuff before you start going into anything risky like angel investing. But I think it's good to have some of it as part of your portfolio.
Yep. Got it. Now I was going to say, speaking of, doing away with stuff this past year and a half, over the course of the ongoing pandemic, boy, did I just scale way down. And it's interesting because you realize, you don't need the stuff. And there's so many things that just don't excite me the way that they used to. So, like I find getting older, I'm 42 now, and the older I get, the less things that I want to have. I want the minimum. I want the absolute minimum. And
and it just starts to shift clearly towards what experiences I think can you have. But maybe that's an age thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But speaking of, the pandemic, has this past year and a half changed your perspective on money and how we spend it or save it, particularly during a pandemic?
I know that this pandemic has hit some people really, really difficult. If you were on the front lines, if you had a personal training fitness business, if you had a wedding DJ business, if you worked in restaurants, and
if you had a plastic surgery business.
Well, I heard plastic surgery did well in the pandemic, but I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe
not
that's
everybody.
A rumor. Yeah, I think having those savings is critical. I have to say, this is yet another reason why real estate is something to work towards, is because you can move out of there, downsize, and get a rental income to cover other expenses, right? That is why I think a real estate is a great asset. But this all comes back to living below your means, and I think not having bad financial habits like carrying balances on your credit cards.
Right.
I don't know if leasing a car is such a great financial decision, so I think, living below your means and having that cushion is obviously what's required. But also, real estate can be a backup, right? I've actually moved out of my home several times to start my fund, to start Class Rebel. And it can give you that stream of income while you downsize your living standard for the time that you need to.
Got it. Very prudent. Now, what life experience has most shaped your relationship with money? Because your relationship with money sounds absolutely healthy. And I know you mentioned that your parents instilled a work ethic in you. So what would you say life experience has most shaped your positive relationship with money?
I really think the truth is this. The generation before mine, the female generation before mine, I feel was very stuck. They were dependent on their partners for money. It was sort of almost like a childlike relationship. And I saw the generations before me. And, my sense was not to be trapped, if I'm being really, really honest.
Yeah. Thank you.
Was there's something going down there that's not, there's a power dynamic there that I don't want to be a part of.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be backed into a corner with my choices because I got accustomed to a certain lifestyle I wasn't personally paying for.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I've asked myself this question, why do I care so much?
Yeah.
There's multiple reasons. Part of it is the freedom to live the way you want in this one life that you get. But part of it is I'm not sure I wanted to play into the power dynamic that I see that you can get into with a more traditional male-female relationship, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. No, I definitely, I agree with that. There is most definitely a power dynamic, especially since, women on average still to this day are only making 75 to 80 cents on the male dollar. So that power dynamic is still there. It is firmly fixed. It is in place. And although we've made progress, thank goodness, it still manifests in ways that are really palpable and sometimes just super disruptive.
I also think we can march on Washington all we want. I came to the Million Women's March in 2016 at the White House. And we can march for things all we want. But I think concurrently, if you can also make sure that those folks that are marching have some economic control over what's happening, I think the protest and the capital moving together is what creates change.
Yep.
It'll change the social condition faster if those people that are protesting also are learning how to control capital, how to risk capital, how to grow their capital. I just think more people owning more money creates the social change we want to see. I can tell you from raising money and managing it that that 99% of who's controlling capital is men in the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And so if we want things to change, I think there's protest, but I think we need to control more capital, to be honest.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to me based on my observations and what's going on in the news and looking at, the C-suite of corporations across many industries.
Yeah. And surely there's the C-suite, but that's not the top of the food chain. The top of the food chain is who owns those companies. And I've always known that, when I was
the O-suite.
Well, when I was at Lululemon, I noticed, everyone was trying to climb the corporate ladder to get to that, to be that CEO one day. And I just sort of, and there's, all the politics and stuff that go with that. And I just always thought, I'm like, where are you climbing? Like, that is not the top of the ladder. The top are the owners of that company. That's the shareholders who are at the top.
Yeah.
So that's what I focused on, was owning equity, because that's what I believe the top really is. And I don't feel like we talk about that yet. We talk about women getting into the C-suite, but I'm like, no, they actually need to become owners in the company. That's the top.
That's interesting. I wonder if this whole, concept of getting to the C-suite is just, a distraction. It's just a distraction.
I think there's so much progress to be made everywhere, right? But if you as a corporate lawyer, we do think in the hierarchy of there's management, right? CEO's the top of management. But above him or her is the board. Right. And then who's above the board? The owners, right? But we never, in popular culture, we're not talking about the layers, right? We're starting to talk about women on the board, things like that. Yeah. But that's still not the top, Shirley. The top is you're an owner. You're an owner. Yeah. So
I'm feeling that. So a windfall comes to you in your mailbox, online somehow. A windfall comes to you tomorrow. Let's say it's $1 million, whatever you want it to be. What is the first decision you would make with that?
I still have a mortgage that I would pay off, because I do not want to be beholden anymore to anyone. Yeah. And there's plenty of people that say that's not the right decision. There's so many good opportunities, but for my personal peace of mind, I don't want to be beholden to the banks anymore. It was my goal at this point, or by the time I was 43, so next year, to be free of a mortgage, because I just think it's trapping in a way, Yeah,
same way student loans are.
Again, it comes back to the first thing I would do is get rid of your debt, because that debt's going to own you and it's going to control you until you get rid of it. And I'm still at the point where, I still have a bit of a mortgage, but it still matters, I'm still beholden. Yeah. So that would be part of it.
Okay. Now, speaking of banks and alternative forms of currency, are you a cryptocurrency owner? If so, why or why not?
I haven't yet. And I really believe this, it takes research to learn this, right? Yeah. That's part of why we're going to be doing a course on crypto, is because what is an affordable course on crypto? Is anyone doing one, right? Yep. Where we can all meet and learn together and break it down to the foundations. Research on it, put it this way, I teach venture investing and the deal mechanics of venture investing. It took me 10 years to learn what I know now today. Wow. And I had a law degree. So, I definitely have some friends that have started up their wallets and things like that. And maybe they have, 2,000 a year exposure and they're kind of practicing their trading. But I always feel like if I'm going to risk money, I'm not going to do it completely blind. And if you're not going to do it completely blind, then research on a brand new asset class takes time. So I'd like to be more, but I've focused more on real estate and venture investing and really sort of understood those markets. But of course, I'm curious because it's interesting from a financial perspective. It's interesting from a political perspective too, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting from an innovation perspective. So not yet, but I will. But I want a course on it first. So I believe we're going to be doing it.
Good. Perfect. I look forward to that one as well. Now, what do you think about day trading?
Well, I always want to be like, what do you think about it? The research out there is that it's not the way to make money.
Yeah.
And that Robinhood is really part of the menace economy. And, they have option traders on there. The options are one of the most riskiest trades. I'll tell you this. when I hear day trading, I mean trying to like game the market, buy and sell really quickly.
Yeah.
Here's what I know, and I think Warren Buffett says something similar, is that where you make your money is you buy and you hold for really long periods of time. So when I look at the assets that have really accrued me wealth, they've been held for 8 or 9 years. And I understand it's hard to have that kind of patience. But I think real wealth is accrued over time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and to answer your question about day trading, I think it's incredibly complex. I think it's confusing. I think you really have to know what you're doing and do your research before you even go there. So I don't day trade at all.
I think angel investing is very similar as well, because there's, you can invest in a company on the thesis, but you also have to understand the deal mechanics as well.
Yeah.
This is where, you do this. This is all like education required, and you might get lucky day trading. You might get lucky on an angel investment. But in some ways, this is all the casino, and you're not guaranteed a good outcome no matter how much education you have. But I think having an education on how it works can help mitigate that risk. But investing is risk and return,
Yeah. Yeah, very true. Now, would you say, investing on the casinos, day trading, money, is capitalism part of the problem, or is it actually part of the solution in general?
I don't know. I watch Mackenzie Scott, and I am waiting and watching to see the kinds of things that she's going to solve, if she can solve what she's doing with her money. Here's what I do believe, and I know that in the US this passes for radically left. You have to remember, I'm from Canada. Most of the people working on the company are from Canada, so nothing I'm going to say next is radically left. Okay. Up where we're from.
Where you're from, right?
I think that you can have capitalism like you do in Scandinavia, like you do in Canada, while at the same time having a floor for people, how far they can fall down the ladder, right? So where I'm from, healthcare is free. No matter how much of the system you need, how much you need from that system, it's free. I believe in free healthcare as a wealthy nation, of course, right? I believe education should be subsidized so that you can really use everyone that you have in your society. Everyone gets a shot, right? Without, backing away from the sticker price or paying for that for their whole lives. So I really think healthcare and education have to be either both free or subsidized to really get the best out of your society and people. But you can still have the capitalism. It's like your upside can be like in these countries, Canada, Scandinavia, Australia, your upside can be unlimited still, which is capitalism, right?
Yeah.
But your downside is capped. Like how far you can fall down the social ladder, and it's not perfect.
Yeah.
But there's no such thing as medical debt in other wealthy countries. That's not a thing, So I'm all for a capitalist system that puts a cap on the floor of how poor you can be and how little access you have to life-changing, life-saving technologies, but leave the cap for you can go as high as you can go, but you can only fall so far. That to me is still capitalism. In the US, I know sometimes people would call that socialism, but that's not how anyone would describe it in the countries like Scandinavia or here. It's capitalism, but with a floor on how far you can fall down the ladder.
Yeah. A matter of perspective and semantics to a certain degree, right?
Yeah. It's, it'll be interesting. I think, part of why I think our company has a big shot is because I just don't see it changing in terms of lowering those tuition rates, or creating education that's affordable. It's not part of the culture, really. It's sort of this, some other commentators call it the caste system, right? It's enforcing, inequality by those sticker prices. So, it's fascinating to watch the US as a wealthy country, and there's certain choices being made. But I think that means there's opportunity for the private enterprises with their hearts in the right places to come in and say, we're going to make modern skill sets available to everyone, affordable to everyone. And I think we can really disrupt what's going on in education.
Well, I am looking forward to that disruption by Class Rebel. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to part 1 of the Forever Fab podcast with my guest, Brooke, Harley. Stay tuned for part 2.
You've just listened to part 1 of Forever Fab podcast. Please stay tuned for part 2, coming up next.